Okay, cool. Okay, we'll get started then. Hey, everybody. This is the first regularly scheduled Express TC meeting for March 4th, 2024. We have a loose notes that I think John volunteered to take. John, did you say you were gonna?
Yeah, I'll be taking minutes.
It'll take minutes in the issue then?
I'll post them into the issue afterwards.
Okay.
So anyone watching this, you'll be able to go to the issue for this meeting and see the minutes.
Okay, we'll make sure this gets more official as we go on. We've got an agenda. It's listed in there. It is not in order. Ulysses, thank you for cleaning it up. It was a quick edit over the weekend of one of the automation pieces that we can, again, revisit and make sure it's going to work for us better in the future. But what I thought we'd first start with is, does anybody have announcements or anything they want to mention to the community?
So maybe on a quick note, we just released a new version like, what, 2-3 days ago, something close to that. So I think it's a good news. And we have, like, when I checked earlier today, I think it was close to 2 million downloads, something like that. So hurrah to the team. 4 days ago.
That was
so I think it's a good news.
The first release that wasn't from Doug's loving hands in quite a while. So
yeah.
Great job.
2.4 million download currently. So congratulations on that.
And that also means we've got progress. That release was to unblock Canary in the Gold Mine on Node Core. Ulysses, do you have an update? Did that merge? I haven't seen it merge yet, but
yeah, it's about to get merged. All the CA is passing. There are some discussions around the test and so on, but just typical discussions before merging, so should be fine.
Awesome, great work. Okay, so like I mentioned, it wasn't in order, so I'm going to be a little bit selective here, and reorder things on the fly. If anybody feels like if I'm choosing the wrong priority order here, feel free to raise your hand and we'll figure that out. But the first thing I wanted to quickly just cover was the recurring TC meeting 195, which is what led to this. I just wanted to quickly make sure everybody was aware and that going forward, we're going to do every other week, and then each of those will alternate between the two time schedules. So the goal here is to provide a little bit more equitable time split across the world, and hopefully enable more folks to come. And then one thing that I think was discussed in that issue is that we had, I got lights turning off in my room, is that we have, we had added a requirement for the TC members to attend, I think no less than, 3 missed ones or something. Especially with the scheduling and stuff, there was some discussion around like removing that or loosening it or changing it. I would love for folks to be able to check that out. I think it's linked. It's either linked in that issue or, I think the full discussion maybe is in that issue. So if folks can just give a quick eye to it, I think it's pretty important that we make sure that the governance changes that we landed as of the last meeting are actually like good, and we want to keep them so that we don't make people freaked out that we're going to like boot people off for not attending the meeting. The goal is just to like make sure we want to grow the group, and we also want to, make sure that we don't get things blocked on accident because of folks, not coming to get quorum for if we did have to vote or something. But if we're worried that is not going to, the wording in the governance is not going to achieve that goal, then we should definitely change it, because it's more for us to be functional than it is about forcing some rules that don't make sense. So is there discussion on that?
From what I saw, go ahead, Rand.
Sorry. Well, I was just going to say, this is the discussion in issue 195 in the discussions repo. Is that the one about the recurring TC meeting? Is that the, okay. And
Yeah,
did-
John
did you-
brings up
did you-
a couple of points in that I think are just worth everybody reading and
Yeah,
and
fair enough.
sharing.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it grew a lot, but I just wanted to say I haven't caught up on it as of today, but I didn't see consensus emerge specifically about the inactivity policy. So I think there's still some pending stuff there, specifically about what that is or the goal of it, et cetera, et cetera. But from what I can tell as an outsider, it looks like some of y'all want to increase the cadence of these meetings. So I think we're doing them like they're set at like what, once a week or something. Is that what Jean just said a minute ago? Yeah.
Yeah, so
and then
once on Monday and one on Wednesday, the next week.
yeah. And so then the question is, with that, based on the increased cadence, there's the elephant in the room is like folks like Blake who have and Rand who have already been on the TC. I'm very sensitive about changing. Why is my camera off? I'm very sensitive about changing scope of commitment. Basically, like if it was a once a month thing before and you guys are cool with that, and if it's now an every week thing, there needs to be an explicit check of like, are you guys cool with that? Because if we don't address, like if we take a hard stance on the inactivity policy, meaning there's going to be a meeting every week, and if you miss 10, then you're inactive or something like that, then the pressures of like, well, this volunteer thing I'm doing, do I have time for it every week, or are all these meetings going to be useful to me, et cetera? So the number one thing is just like making sure that the TC as it exists is okay with the expectation of the commitment, and two, that the inactivity policy lines up with that, because some folks are excited to attend every week. Jean and Wes, obviously, Ulysses, obviously, but like I don't think existing TC members signed up for an every single week commitment, and I don't know that every single one of those meetings needs the full TC. So like that's again, I would like to open the floor to Blake and Rand if you guys have thoughts about this, because I'm just very sensitive to the idea of changing expectations and then having there be an attendance policy with that. But we're at a place right now where all of this can change. We should talk about it ahead of time instead of afterwards when somebody is like, hey man, I want to leave the TC because I can't do it every week. Because I don't think that anyone wants every week meetings to push anybody out, but there are people who want to meet every week right now for, again, an option would be like working sessions versus a monthly official is kind of the way I look at it, but I'll yield the floor now. So.
Well, yeah, thanks for your concern. I do think weekly is fairly often. It compared to what's been going on in the past. That being said, if I think it's great if people want to meet that often. I probably won't be able to, but I mean, I would like to. But I'm trying to see what is the policy like if you miss 3 in a row, or is it 3 in a year, or what is it?
Yeah, so this is, I think the wording was maybe, I wrote it just very quickly thinking, we just need something, and then everybody kind of approved it and we merged it. So I'm like, maybe that was a little bit too aggressive. Which I think is perfectly valid. I think, and that's why I opened the PR to loosen it. So I posted that just to like at least drop it back a whole bunch of notches to not be quite so demanding.
Yeah.
But again, the goal here is strictly grow the group, grow our impact in the project, and make sure we're able to unblock things. Whatever the policy is, doesn't matter as long as that is achieved. So if we delete the whole thing, I'm perfectly happy with that. Just in the past, there was a point where I think there was a few meetings in a row, maybe, where it was like me, Doug, and Linus. There was a time, it got too frequently attended that it was problematic in some ways.
I think it's totally fair to have an inactivity policy, but yeah, I just agree. It shouldn't be so draconian that people are just getting dropped by the wayside left and right. So it's just a matter of finding that balance. I don't know. Yep. It looks like I'm looking at your PR, which it's set. What is it? You can't miss. Should have active participation. I'm trying to figure out what it actually ends up being. Should have active participation within the last 12 months. No.
So yeah, the meeting part is I changed it to 6 in a row, but even that again
Okay.
feels like a fair bit. If we were doing every other week, which I thought that's what we said. We didn't say every week, right?
So I think before we write it, it was before we were okay to do one meeting every week. So it was on a 2-week schedule. So when you said, I think on the first part of the policy, it was, oh, if you miss 6 meetings, it was like 3 months or something like that, which for me, that was this is why I was advocating it's a bit too much. Like I can understand if someone cannot join for 3 weeks, it's complete for 3 months is completely normal for personal reason like health or stuff like that. That's not an issue at all. But I would guess that people can send a message somewhere to say, hey, I'm unavailable, see you in 6 months, and great, we don't move people outside of that. But now that, at least for the first part, we do have a meeting every week, I think we can do something about 1.5, like 6 meetings would be 1.5 months, I guess. So I think it's something that is not too fast and not too long period also. I guess it's a good middleman, at least a middle value. But we can also agree on changing that and saying, oh, the meeting on a Monday is the like TC session, and the one the next week on Wednesday would be the working time for the TC. And then we only take into account, oh, if you miss 3 TC session, then, or 3 or 4, something like, I don't really care about the value. And we can split that into, it's 2 different type of meeting. Only one is really required, not the other one.
Yeah, both of those make sense to me. But I think, I don't know, Blake, did you want to say anything? Do you have any input?
I don't have that much to add. I'd just say that, yeah, it's probably pretty often that I would be offline for up to a month. So definitely I'd be kicked off for 3 weeks. Probably not
So yeah,
immediately,
I think the
but
6
sometime.
then, yeah, I mean, 6 seems reasonable to me, at least for now. We can obviously adjust that as we move forward. So I'm fine with that.
So I don't think that today we need to lock on a inactivity policy, because again, I don't think anybody in this group is going to kick somebody out for not, for whatever. At this point, it's not going to happen. Well, what I do think is important is clarifying, like, why is it like, why do we care about the inactivity policy? Why do we care about attendance? Part of it is that people want to meet frequently right now because they want to make decisions quickly. So that question rises then of like, do we need the full TC to make most of these decisions? Because if Blake or Rand can't show up for an every week meeting, which is a lot, I've dropped out of D&D campaigns because every week was a lot, right? So my question is like, I think, and then why do we want to meet? We want to meet because getting people in the room and sharing ideas is good. And also you can quickly make decisions. So that's kind of the thing is like, I'm hesitant of saying that like, oh, these meetings need to have the full TC to be useful, but that is sort of true if we work under the idea of these are going to be official meetings where official decisions requiring quorum are going to happen. So then why do we need an activity policy? We need an activity policy because what if people become inactive and we're no longer able to reach quorum? So an activity policy can help reduce the number of active to unblock official decisions. But again, like, so I think the elephant in the room is really like expectation of, expectation of showing up to meetings. And also like, I think if there's a meeting every week, like for now, I'm happy to show up to it, right? Because there's going to be cool stuff happening. However, we might not need the full TC for all of those meetings. And at which point, one, if we have an official meeting to say, hey, if you can make one this month, make this one, because we will bubble up some bigger things to that, and then people can plan around it and make some official decisions there. And official decisions for anyone watching is basically like anything that can't be decided based on consensus, just like, yep, everybody says, yep, that's good. If you cannot do that, then you need to go to a vote, which is like an official TC vote kind of thing, basically. So again, elephant in the room is like, every week is a lot of an ask, to be quite honest. And so some people are volunteering their time, and let's not block them from doing that and doing work. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if, Blake, Rand, and other TC members don't have every single week to show up for an hour or whatever. So that is the elephant in the room, in my opinion, is like, let's not block on meeting frequently, but let's, be clear about the expectation of those meetings and the attendance, et cetera. So.
Well, I just want to time check us. Ulysses, you're up next. But we're about halfway through the meeting time, and so we've only got.
Oh, I will go fast. I just say that we can split the concept. I mean, we can just put the policy of a natural time, like let's say 1.5 months of inactivity versus the amount of meetings, because something that is going to change a lot now because the project is getting drifting. So yeah.
I like that. So let's wrap this one up and just say, I would love to see some comments to this stuff in the PR, just so that we can land something that makes this a better, the document reflects the feelings of the group, not that we're trying to fit into some box of rules that we just made up last week. So, okay, cool. If that's good, then let's move on. The next most important item, sorry, I'm got a few tabs. So the Express Forward initiative got landed. So this agenda, by the way, just so everybody knows, I made a bot a long time ago that just pulls things labeled top priority, and it puts it in here. So when we, so we're probably not going to actually go through everything individually on here, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're calling the Express Forward initiative, but it's got a whole ton of stuff under it. And so in one of the private channels, we had been discussing sort of, there's a lot of moving pieces going on. We're posting way more like long threads than I think has happened in a fairly long time on the project. And so keeping up with that has been, I think, demanding and difficult. And we need to figure out a way to organize the work that does not involve everybody spending half of each day keeping up with these things, because that has been what I've been doing, and that is not sustainable. I will not be able to do that personally longer term. But I think to get us over the hump and as we get things organized, I think it's kind of necessary. So what I wanted to talk about with this is more high-level planning stuff to make sure that we're all working toward the same goals at around the same time. That the issue linked here has 50 things in it. We can't work on 50 things at once. We need to work on like 2, maybe 3 at once. So what I wanted to talk about here was like, what are those 2 or 3 things? I have a couple of ideas. A few of them are also on this agenda list. But I figured I'd open it up. Yeah, maybe Jean can get that kicked off.
Yeah, so I think one of the first one, and I guess we can all agree here, would be being able to release Express 5. First one, big milestone for everyone, like landing something we are all waiting for the past 10 years. But the first blocker for me, other than, we take one specific branch, we do one way or one other way to publish it and it's done. Okay, we can do that. My main question is, which version, and I will go directly on the good topic, which version of Node.js do we want to support with that? Just for one specific reason is there is plugin or there is dependency or module that we cannot use at their latest stage today. And I think even you, Blake, you have some modules part of the Express ecosystem or on your personal project that are also widely used that require at least Node 10, I guess, something close to that, and today Express 5 is Node 4 and above. So if we keep Node 4, then it means that there is a lot of plugin or like modules that we won't be able to use as their latest version. And for most of them, they won't even be maintained anymore. So we are releasing a version that we won't be able to update, or we will add more complexity to specific maintainer to say, hey, you are used by Express. It's one of the biggest projects. Please keep up to date on the specific version. You haven't released something for the past 3 years or 5 years. So which version, like I open a thread on like a way to decide, or at least a small view of the ecosystem. Most of the framework, like as a big TLDR, support the LTS that was open 3 years ago. If you take Fastify, if you take Symfony, if you in PHP, if you take Laravel, if you take Ruby on Rails, even Django, latest version of Django in Python and stuff like that, it's mostly close to 3 years, which was close for us to version that was released between 2020 and 2021, which would be between Node 14 and Node 16. So which version do we want to support? Like also keeping in mind that Express 5 would be almost a transition version. I guess like the big work that we plan on the first message was Express 6 with cleaning everything, changing a lot of stuff and everything. Express 5 is really one version to say, hey, we are back online, we are bringing a new version, some update and everything, dropping some version, but do we want to drop a small number of version or a lot number of version?
Yeah, I completely agree. This is a major block error for actually hitting the publish button. So I had opened the issue about a LTS strategy, which I think is the longer term discussion, which I think we are of a place that is critical enough to the ecosystem that people would plan around it like they do for node LTSs. And so I think having clarity there is super important. It became pretty clear in that conversation that there is really this concern that we're releasing Express 5 and there's no way we can get the ecosystem moving back to a pace that would enable a yearly cadence or a 6 months cadence. At least to me, that's pretty clear. And then I think for our group, if we tried to do major versions every 6 months, I mean, there's no way. We're not big. We don't have enough people contributing regularly. We don't have the ability to keep maintenance for, at that pace. So I think that's a pretty big issue. And then that's sort of the longer term. But then I think the biggest issue is that Express 5 has been on the burner for so long that we're going to get a lot of people coming out of the woodwork that we never even, they were just so stable. And then they're going to be confused because they had not had to do this ever maybe in their entire career, right? To get a major version update of Express, right?
So you have people that graduated 5-6 years ago that use the same version as 4 days ago, let's say.
Yeah, they're like senior engineers who have probably worked at like 3 different companies and use the same version Express at all 3, right? So like we got to be really careful. So I think it's pretty safe to call Express 5 a special case. Now, where do we draw the line at the special case? Is it node 4? That seems pretty ill-advised to me. I think, can we call it node 16? Also probably ill-advised. We need to probably pick somewhere where there's a reasonable upgrade path for our user base. So if somebody has locked in at node 0.10 and not updated in 10 years, and they come into the issue tracker and they say, hey, I tried to update and it didn't work. What do I need to do? That our answer is not, rewrite your whole app or, update your whole dependency tree all at once. We need some level of confidence that they can take this as a stepping stone to get to 6, where 6, we could start taking the harder cuts, right? And say, we're going to release something that updates a dependency that's critical and drops node, up to 18, or again, we could like conform to an LTS policy for 6, where again, I just think 5 needs to be that stepping stone to get there. So if we're calling it for 5, I think we should write an LTS policy doc and say, this is where we're going. But to get there, everybody who's going to be watching this, because there's like, even in that thread, there's people who are not on the meeting here and who have not been involved in the project who are sharing opinions, and they're awesome, great. I hope we can, get them on these calls or, helping more detailed with the project. But at the same time, like, they're the first wave. As soon as we actually release it, there's going to be a huge wave of people coming into sharing these opinions. And if we don't have a doc that we can point to that says, hey, here's our policy, it calls out at the very top, Express 5 is an exception. We're not planning on always supporting, 7-year-old node versions, but we need to get there for these X reasons. Like, that is going to save us a lot of pain. So I would like to say that our like to-do item for Express v5 release needs to include writing an LTS policy doc. And that policy doc should include that Express 5 is going to be against it in some exceptional cases to get us over that. So that's where I'd like to go. Jean, I think you had your hand up first.
No, yeah, 100% with that. And John also put a link on the current migrating way to Express 5. And I agree with everything you said, like 100%. The main topic is we cannot, like, at least on my personal point there, is we cannot provide or say, hey, you can work with Express and it's still good for you to use Node.js 6 or 8, or like, there is a middle ground here on saying we still want to care for the system and cater for the system to the ecosystem, for everyone to say, hey, we want you to work with something that is safe, or the safest in some part of boundaries. And if you check, for example, so for me, my point would be using node 14 as a default. It still keep 5 years, I think, from the first release on node 14, between 4 and 5 years, which is still like in the JavaScript ecosystem, it's still large. It doesn't involve, at least from memory, the most and major breaking change part of Node.js. So it's not changing the SSL version. It's not changing ICU for the language part and everything. So it's, I guess, one of the latest stable part without a big change in the ecosystem, I would say. I don't remember if ESM is part of Node 14 though. 16, I'm sure. 14 maybe behind an experimental flag, but I don't know if it's like it's still experimental or if we change it. Like I do have a big question there. But I think it's something that we should try to have a way, because for us, like we are almost starting back the project. We are 6 people today. Like we won't grow to 200 people contributing on a daily basis and everything. Like I would love that, but like from other project, I don't think so. And the main point is, can we really support like 10 version of Node.js? That's the main point. Yeah, go Ulysses.
Oh, yeah, I think 14 is maybe stable for ISM, but yeah, I passed the link to the documentation. Yeah, from my side, I think the big challenge will be like until when we want to support the Express 4, because I mean, the people who are already in Express 4 will remain Express 4. The idea is to be full compatible with the full spectrum of Node. And we can even keep this philosophy for a while and just, step by step, let the people move away from 4 and move to 5 or 6. I also personally don't think 5 is going to be like a huge game changer for the community, because they have been waiting for that for years. So even if we change the minimum Node.js version compatible to whatever makes sense, the 14 makes sense for me in 2023, I think should be fine. I don't think people going from Node.js 6 complain about Express 5, because the big chance for them is move from Node to the next version. So in that sense, I think it's clear for me. So I think the biggest challenge for us is to have a clear schedule on when 4 is going to die, if we plan to make that happen, or just making security releases for years and so on. Personally, I like to have 4 for many more years because it has a massive adoption. But yeah, that depends a lot on us.
I just wanted to, that's technically a second topic here. I think it's very important. Do we want to make a decision on what node version before we then talk a little bit about how long we support Express 4? I say decision, like we should probably do it in an issue officially, but like if we all have a consensus, then it's a lot easier to write the issue and not have to like go back and forth a lot. Like I'm fine with 14 if that's where we want to call it. I think that gets I think I brought up ESM in the chat because I think that's the critical thing that allows unblocking certain dependency updates. I could be wrong though. There maybe are other things here we probably have to test those out.
So just on a quick point, I opened an issue a few days ago and I put the link here. Is like basically my thinking about which version and why, and comparing with the ecosystem. So it's a one in admin number 3. Just you have some
brings up
from
a
my
good point.
part. So
John, that repo is new.
yeah, no.
So I don't know if people are following it.
Yeah, I can move that.
I did not see this issue.
No, I can move that. That's why I just brought that. I can move that where you want in every repository in your LTS if you want issue. The main part wasn't really too long to put in one comment. So that's just that. So I can move that without any issue somewhere else. And it's not to take a decision today, just how I thought about which version and how it compared to other framework in the ecosystem, and for everyone to comment, or we can move that elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm not worried. We probably should have a general understanding of where things go. I thought the admin repo was more to do the administrative stuff, where the discussions repo would keep being the place to do those kind of discussions. I also, since it was new, I wasn't following it, so I didn't even see it. And I imagine other folks have not followed that new repo yet. So I'll go follow it, but also maybe we should just move that one over to discussions. Anyway, if we're good on that and we call we say like likely we're going to call it at 14, then that's good, and we can move it into discussions and move forward on that. We'll have to come up with a to-do list of things that need to be updated then, because I think everything from CI/CD in the 5 branch to the docs, which Rand mentioned in the chat, that haven't been updated in 2 years. Honestly, I don't think there's been a major change in the branch in 2 years, so it might be why that hasn't been updated, but we can deal with that. Wanted to then maybe move on to how long do we support Express 4, which is part of this. So I don't know if folks have initial thoughts they want to share, or I can share mine. Okay. I think no less than a year. I think if we do 2 years, that's fine. That's a lot of work for the next 2 years. So we have to be careful about how we balance that. I think stability is critical here. Express, unlike any of the other HTTP frameworks in the ecosystem, needs to value stability over a lot of other things. And I know that's a controversial point. It's not because I think that's the best way to run a software project. It's not because I think that's a good place to be, because of the history. And we just have to accept that. And if we want to get past that, we need to maintain the project in a more sustainable way. And I think that's what this group is hopefully doing. So like, maybe we need to sign up for 2 years of security patches. Maybe we need to sign up for 3 years of security patches. Although I would love it if we could just say 1, but I'm just not sure that is realistically safe. So that's my initial thoughts. Jean, I think you were first.
Yeah, on a really quick note on that. Yeah, I think 1 year will be like crazy to think that everyone will update to Express 5 in a year. Like, would be great, but I don't expect that. But I think we can do like how a lot of other frameworks are doing, 1 year of, let's say, 1 year of maintenance mode, where we still maybe are bringing some update and everything, and 1 year or 6 months, which is just security update. So we split the two, where for 1 year we say we will bring and maybe not backport some evolution, but we'll maybe still continuing to update specific packages and part of the ecosystem. And if we can update something that is not breaking, great, we'll do it, but only for a year. And then after that, it will be only security related. Yes. Yep. Basically, yes.
Yeah, you guys just covered what my hand was on, which is just to make sure you're defining support and what exactly you mean by it. But that maps to what I think of maintenance, which I don't even know what maintenance means fully, but 2 years of security updates, I think is reasonable for sure. So maintenance, I guess, would be like, if there's a legit bug, fix it. And then security is, security issues specifically, to be pedantic. So
yeah, like for example, that cookie PR that we were just talking about, which we might also want to have a discussion about on this meeting really quick. It's a new thing, but it would be, I think, considered a bug to not be able to set it in old version. So if that had come in after we entered maintenance mode, we could have called lack of that a bug, right? So like there's a little bit of a fuzzy line there, but I think the goal here would be we would use our best expertise. If it is really easy to backport and is borderline a bug, we'd backport it for the first year. And then for the second year or second 6 months, we would say no to that type of thing, and we would only do critical security patches, something like that. Go ahead, Ulysses.
Yeah, from my side, one note on the security releases time. If some companies or some people want to have more time for security releases, maybe we can, just negotiate some kind of a sponsorship also. So we will have some resources and we can have, specific releases for that and so on. I mean, there are already companies working on that, but yeah, that will be a good option maybe for us and critical system that move super slowly. Because I'm already have some clients with still using Node 10 because they don't have any option to move. Yeah, we know cases like that. So.
I work for one, so yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a great thing. And if we as a group are able to use that leverage to land a little bit more support for the ecosystem, like even better, right? It's been really hard for all open source projects to fund themselves. And this one seems like an obvious way for us to, keep those companies able to do their business without, and then pay, like I would love to see a program where we pay individual contributors on the project to like help backport those things. Phenomenal. Anything that gets maintainers paid is a big win in my book. Okay, if we're good on that, like I think we have a general consensus. The next steps, which I think was already true, and we had arrived at on the LTS issue, is to open a proposal that does the LTS doc. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can do it. I already wrote it like most of the time, most of the part in admin, so I can move that. So good.
Okay, great. That's awesome. And then, so I think that wraps up most of the, and then one sort of administrative point, with the flurry of activity, we've had duplicate issues opened up. We've had the same conversation in multiple threads. We've had things posted in the Slack channels that aren't posted in the issues. It's been a little bit all over the map. I love the energy. We want to keep the energy, but we want to make sure that we're all able to actually follow it. So I would really recommend folks focus on making it in the issues first. Look for an issue that is applicable. Now, I will say some of the titles of the issues right now need a little bit of work because they're not quite clear on what we're talking about in the issue. So Jean, I wanted to mention this. Are you all right with us all maybe editing the titles as the conversation goes? Okay, cool. I didn't want to like step on your toes.
All good. Yeah, feel free
sort of...
to update, to change. Like you can edit on my message. That's not an issue at all.
Okay, cool. I just didn't want to like step on your toes and do something you weren't, because like I think the one about node version support is actually called deprecate Node.js, which could be read as a very interesting, I don't know. Anyway.
And the same discussion happened in the issue open for using Node.js test runner about the version we support. Yes.
Exactly. So there's a lot going on. Let's just like try to be a little bit more cohesive. That said, I also started a GitHub project board. Not sure if this is going to work for everybody, but we have a lot of things in a lot of different repos. GitHub projects at least allows us within one org to organize that all into one spot. That is, I think everybody should be able to edit on the TC at least. And then, John, by the way, like, this is going to come up over and over. If you want to, be a part of the TC, I think that would be more than welcome. I think I've asked you before. I think Ulysses and I chatted recently, like, hey, John, like, anyway. So if you want that, I think it's locked. I think it's private right now, but there's not private intentionally, just private because I didn't want to make it public unless we were ready to actually like use it to organize work. But we need something that centralizes this stuff so that we can actually keep track of what's going on. And we need, as much as I'm not a big fan of big P process, I think we need like some level of process here to make sure we're not rehashing the same topics over and over.
Wes, is this the project that you created, the EFI? Okay, cool. Because I can see it at least. That's my
good.
point.
Yeah. So anyway, feel free to, delete it if we have a better idea. I don't know. I was just trying to get something that we could focus our efforts and prioritize a little bit, because we've got a lot of sort of secondary issues, I think, right now, maybe even third level of importance. And I want to just make sure we're focused on the ones that actually are going to help us ship Express 5 and not getting distracted in, the hundreds of other topics. So to me, that is, and I think it's on the board, right? I have to open the tab. Yeah, security and LTS strategy. Does anybody think we have anything else that is critical before we ship 5? I mean, obviously 5 itself needs to land on there, but I think these two are the things we need to understand before we can ship 5. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, there is that, and depending on which version we want to support, we'll have a full round of update on every packages of the ecosystem. Like global, we are speaking 40 packages, maybe 1 or 2 update, which will be globally like major update because we'll be like killing a 10 version of Node.js runtime. So it will be an update on everything, a major update on everything.
Yeah, and so the idea was with this board is let's nail down those 2, and then we can make a whole bunch of new issues for the Express 5 part of it, that would then land as, you know, maybe once those are crossed off, those become, then Express 5 ones become P0, something. Again, this is going to happen across all 3 orgs though. And this board only covers the Express org. So we might need some level of orchestration for the things in Pillar.js. And I think it's mostly Pillar.js. I think the stuff in JS HTTP stays pretty, we need to like make sure the CI CD stuff is updated and whatever, but I don't think we need to land, we don't need to drop things there. So we don't actually need to make major version revs for those. Right? Because that what we're saying is we're, maybe there's some details here. We've only got 7 minutes, so I just want to make sure we move on. But let's keep this in mind. Let's try to stay focused and not, you know, get into the 10 million things we want to do. Those are just, we'll do them, you know, in the next 6 months, not today. TypeScript support was another great example. There's like a lot of flurry of discussion there. I think we should definitely move on that kind of stuff, but P0, probably not. So
Oh yeah, true.
Okay, if everybody's good with that, then I'd like to just do our last 6 minutes on the security stuff.
I take 30 seconds on something. So just because I created an admin repo, I also did another pull request about the list of all repository we do have in all organizations, the 3 organizations. I put a list, a recommendation for each of one, if you want to keep it or to like archive it or delete it for some that are empty. If like I didn't found a good way to ask for everyone, so I created a PR there. If you can just spend after the meeting or like during the week, if you all agree with the choice I did, please feel free to LGTM or just add your comment. That way, when let's say in the next meeting or end of the week, depend when you prefer, I can update or delete or archive everything that will remove some noise of projects that are not used, that are clearly not updated. Like there is projects that have 10 downloads a month, so we don't really care to keep that. So that's my just point on that.
No, that's a great point. I actually, that brought up something that I forgot to mention as well. I think Ulysses made a spreadsheet as well. So we should, there's different levels of actions that need to happen here. So there is the archive, delete, otherwise abandon officially, which I think is the first pass. But then we have to then go through all of them and get some sort of like, does it meet all the things, the checklist for V5?
Yep.
And I'm not sure a table in Markdown is going to be an effective way to manage that. So we should just like come up with something. If it's the spreadsheet, great. We can add columns for every like thing, and then people could like put their name in the field for like signing up to do it. I don't know. But we don't want to like duplicate the work and have 2 people accidentally do it at once. And we also, you know, just need to have some central like place where we can go and say, yes, we are finally ready to update the Express V5 with all of these dependency updates, like whatever, you know, that stuff. We just don't want to miss something through not being organized. So maybe Ulysses, are you comfortable with that spreadsheet being sort of the global view?
I think so. Yeah, it's an iteration of the one that John made originally. So there are tons of fields. If you don't need any one of the columns, just remove it. But there is a lot of additional stuff that might not be relevant.
Did you post it somewhere? Because I thought you posted it in the Slack, but we probably need to post it.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in Slack, but yeah, I can find it and share it
I
here.
can't find it right now either.
Yeah, if not, I will find it later today and we'll put it on a Slack, so no worries.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Sorry, I didn't know it was yours originally too. So it's good. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I have to drop. I've got another meeting coming up. So that's about it. But there's a few things I'd like to discuss at some point, but they're all not as high priority as all this other stuff. So maybe in future meeting I can.
What's top of mind, Rand?
Just I mean, there's so much documentation work to be done. You know, and I don't even know where to start, but I guess I before I should waste everybody's time, I should probably try to organize my thoughts, because there's just I mean, the docs have just sat there for so long, and so let me try and put my thoughts together more deliberately, rather than waste everyone's time with the scattershot approach. But yeah, so maybe
That would be
next
wonderful.
week.
Yeah, the discussions repo, I think, would be a good place for us to talk about that. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we can get a bunch of volunteers to help you as well.
Cool.
So don't think small, think big on what you want, because people love to, this is the kind of stuff where I think we could get an army of folks who would be like absolutely happy to help.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, guys. I got to go.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.
Thanks
We
for
do only
listening.
have 2 minutes, so do we want to, what security parts are the most important? We've got the working group repo made. We
Yep.
met with the audit folks. Should I just give an update from the audit meeting? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
sounds good.
So the foundation has been doing these, working with foundation projects to do audits. When we were going through getting all this stuff set up, well, before that, actually, Robin and folks had said like, hey, we would love Express to do this. And I was on some CPC meeting and I basically said, yeah, that's unlikely. Like, let's, sorry. But now that we're doing this, they came back and said, hey, now that you're, getting things back set up, we'd love to do it. I think it would add a lot of value. And so basically my thought with it was like, let's do the kickoff meeting and just see what they say. Ulysses, John, and I were on that. It went pretty well. I think they're pretty reasonable. I think it'd be great to do. But I think there's a ton of the devil's in the details. So we discussed, how do they raise the issues? What do they focus on? Their answer to almost all the questions was, we'll just work with you to figure out what that looks like. My proposal then would be to just say, let's hand this off to the security working group, and then let's formalize that working group scope of ownership to like own it. And so if that means we all want to participate in that, great. But if somebody's not super interested in the security aspect, I think that's also a good way to sort of delegate the work and not have everybody on every topic. So that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't know, Ulysses, did you have?
Yeah, that's pretty much all. I put some pull requests that will be worth mention, and check fast if you want to see, just to kick off the official working group with the rules and so on. It's a very draft version. We can do better soon, but yeah, that's just to start getting folks involved. Just to keep a full overview, there are going to be like 2 parts of the working group. One is like the public available streaming and so on. So the idea is like anybody who is interested will join and help us. There are going to be plenty of works to do, from the OpenSSL scorecard to other amount of things that can be a good way for start getting new collaborators, contributors, and so on. And there is going to be like a private part, at least at the beginning, that is going to be like the security triage team, with the idea of what happened when somebody reports a vulnerability or potential vulnerability in Express, and who to call and what's going to happen and who deal the patch and so on. So this is going to be part of that group, responding to all the questions. From that on, we will need to work on a threat model. We will need to work in, a lot of things. So we are working with Adam mostly and other working groups from the Node.js and other teams that I try to bring the people on. So basically, it's going to be a security party around this. And the idea is to split a lot the work between new champions and new people and new hands, and also to get new collaborators, contributors, and so on. But yeah, that's the idea. Everything that is related to security will fill in this group. And for those who are familiar with security working groups, in this one, we are going to deal also with the security vulnerabilities, patching, and so on, which is not the common thing. So that's why it's important to remark. But yeah, that's basically a fast update.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We are at time. When we scheduled these, it was because we knew we'd have too many topics to fit. So that's what we did here. But we'll be continuing in the issues, and we'll work toward a better integration to put together the agenda, so that it's not quite so disorganized, but it's first. So, we'll get better at it.
Was that consensus on handing off the audit to the security working group? Does anybody present oppose?
Oh, yeah, good call, but I don't.
Cool. I'm doing the minutes, so that's a decision that was just made, so it's recorded now.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, it's in the issue of the formation. Yeah, we had discussion there.
Sweet. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Does anybody have any closing remarks or thoughts?
Not, can you create the event for next week? I don't think it's added yet. Or maybe
I will do that today. Are we comfortable with the format and scheduling? Is that good? Are we going to be? Yeah. Okay.
Wednesday next week. Yeah, that's okay. 9 p.m. for Ulysses and myself. It's okay. At least for me. Sorry, I don't want to speak for you.
So sounds great. Sounds great. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you in the issues and next week.
Have a good day.
Hi, folks.